Hey everyone, Brittany here, Regenerating with B. My voice is shot, but we're going to get through this. Thank you so much for your patience, as this was a very challenging episode to record. I have a lot of messages that I would love to share. However, I'm still hesitant of this platform of sharing my experience, but others are attached to my experience and not wanting to harm anyone or offend anyone. And here I am. So, with that said, just know that I'm out here like you, doing the best I can every day to be myself, to be open to improvement, because the goal is love and peace and joy. And so, today we'll be talking about acceptance and emotional intelligence. Acceptance is is really hard. And depending on what a topic is or who the person is, some people who support us may be like, oh, um, um, like, oh, just let it go. And it's not that easy. Acceptance is hard when it's attached to somebody you love, somebody who you have invested time with mutually, someone who you've connected with, who you have a bond with, who you have a relationship with, period, that you value. And when you realize that an individual, for whatever reason, whether they have the capacity, whether it's their ego, whatever the reason is, that you cannot continue to go down this pattern with them because it drains you, it hurts you, it keeps you from moving forward. It starts to build resentment and negative emotions, and it starts to eat you from the inside out. I don't have the answer to why some people refuse to change, or when you sit down with them, they refuse to see things from your perspective or to validate your hurt feelings. And it seems like they're very self-centered, or the focus is on them and what they need. And you feel like you're not being heard. Your needs aren't being heard. And you think, well, maybe if I explain it a different way, or maybe if I have so-and-so talk to them, or maybe this, or maybe that. And I know right now it's a very hard time because since COVID, therapy is on the rise, which is great. However, therapy is really hard. And you can tell in a person's answer their reason of why they're going to therapy. And I know the joke used to be, oh, we go to therapy because other people won't. That's it's it's funny because it's only partially true. We should be going to therapy to heal ourselves. And this part is what people refuse to do. And it's the people that we love the most. It's the people that we desire a relationship with, a lover, a sibling, a parent. And acceptance is so hard because acceptance comes with boundaries. And we love to give people the benefit of the doubt, which is human nature. However, if we see patterns taking place and we see words being said or hearing words being said, but we don't see action. We don't see effort. We're only met with resistance, sometimes arrogance, sometimes we're dismissed. Those are telling signs of what the outcome is going to be. And we have to make a decision if we're going to stay on this rabbit wheel with a person, or are we going to hop off and be there when they're ready to hop off? And if they're not ready to hop off and they continue this cycle for a lifetime, what does the relationship look like? Emotional intelligence, which is a word that's used so often now, is really our soul, our being, in a way that I can put it. It's the thing that lives inside of us when we know something is wrong or we know something's going to happen. That is a part of our emotional intelligence. It's our emotions. The intelligence piece should really honestly be called awareness, because emotional intelligence is a muscle. And the more that we're put in situations and we're supported by someone we can trust to help navigate, such as a therapist or a close friend, you'll realize that not everything is personal. Not everything is about you to take personal. That is when you start to identify patterns in yourself and in others. It's taken me a long time to accept some people's behavior. And sometimes it's me removing myself from the relationship completely. Sometimes it's having a conversation. And sometimes it's what boundaries am I setting so that I don't lose the humanity and I continue to have compassion for a person. This is hard because we're living in a time where people are just like, oh, this person's not good to me, I'm going to cut them off. This is deeper than that. This is you checking yourself first to see, what are my blind spots? What are my triggers? What is something that I need to work on? Why do these things bother me? How can I heal from them? What is my responsibility? We cannot live in a victim mindset for too long. We cannot use that lens to see the world, because then it only becomes about you. We all are walking around with different experiences that have traumatized us, triggered us, and we have to make the decision. And some of us may not, like I said before, whether it's a choice or truly capacity. For those who, once we have learned and we know better, we are obligated to do better. This is how peace comes. This is how joy comes. When you identify situations, scenarios, people, patterns, because if you're self-aware, you can watch yourself walk down the same pattern over and over. And then you're so self-aware that you become just turned off. Like, no, I don't really want to do this because I know the outcome. That's paying attention. It's not about getting it right the first time. But after so long, there is the self-regulation, the self-discipline of emotional intelligence of like, okay, now you really know better. Why do you continue to do this? Self-regulating your own emotions. There's so many times I want to lash out at certain people. There's so many times I want to scream and say, what about me? But I know that that's not productive conversation that doesn't move us into a resolution, I have to make space for other people because they may be hurt as well. But if you're only thinking about yourself, you'll never move forward. You have to have the motivation to change. And when I say this, when I say change, I'm not saying change yourself so people can walk over you. I'm not saying to not be yourself. When I say the motivation to change, that if you have a relationship with someone and they're telling you that these things are hurting them, and you can see things from their perspective and you can agree, having that motivation that you love them, that you care about them, that you want them to be comfortable, that you will change your emotions, your perspective, your actions, that you're not too prideful, that you will not allow your ego to get in the way. Empathy. A lot of people lack empathy. A lot of people lack saying, I'm sorry. And I know some of us, it's rooted in, you know, being scared to be wrong because of the way we were raised to, you know, be a certain way and dress a certain way and look a certain way. But you have to let it go and you have to do the work to let it go. But you have to have empathy. You have to forgive so others can forgive you. You have to understand. You have to see things from different perspectives. You can't be a compassionate person if you're not empathetic. You cannot see the humanity in others if you are not empathetic. Empathy is when you consider somebody else's feelings, especially when you make decisions that you know that can affect them. And you have to have the social want to move forward in relationships as you navigate and you strengthen your emotional intelligence. Relationships are reciprocal. Relationships will have conflict. Conflict is healthy. What's not healthy is feeling that you always have to be right, that you always have to feel validated, that you have to talk over somebody, that you have more pain. And I'll flip it. For the people who have experienced loving somebody so much and you wanting them to just understand your perspective, and not because you're trying to control a situation, but it really goes down to how they treat you, how important it is to hear you so there's a healthy relationship. For those who I know who have sat down, who've had talks, who've had to get excited over and over about somebody saying they're going to change, and a person will continue to lie or manipulate, not own up to the magnitude of the impact that they've hurt you. You have to accept that it's not personal. You have to strengthen your emotional intelligence to know that it's not you and that you can only work on you, and don't allow these hard moments to harden your heart. Allow your emotional intelligence to allow your emotions and allow your soul and your heart to guide you to love and compassion and humanity and empathy. And in order to preserve those things, though, that is where boundaries come into play. And this is hard, and it continues to be connected to acceptance, because you have to accept that somebody may not treat you the way that you deserve to be treated. So now you have to set a boundary. You still miss this person. You still love this person. You still want the best for this person. But you know, if you give them just a little bit of yourself, that they won't treat you the way that you need to be treated. And you have to sit and think, what do those boundaries look like? Unfortunately, for some, I won't even say unfortunately. For those, it is no contact. For those, it's a cadence of monthly. For those, it's no in person. And that sounds really harsh. But what's also really harsh when you're alone crying, when you're talking until you're blue in the face, and the person is denying, deflecting, will not be vulnerable. That's all devastating as well. And you'll never heal. You'll be living on the wheel with them, begging them to just want peace, to define what the relationship looks like. But whether they choose not to or they don't have the capacity, they cannot hear you. I learned about emotional intelligence when I was working with the school district, and it was actually a training that we had by a consulting firm. And it was one of the best trainings that I received because it really taught me that it is okay for me to have feelings. It is okay for me to want specific things from people like respect, accountability. And it also taught me that not everybody is on the same level when it comes to emotional intelligence. Some people don't know better until they're taught or shown better. There's a lot of different reasons why people lack emotional intelligence, but what it taught me was how to navigate dealing with people. It allowed me to assess people and say, okay, this is not a person that I would want in my life close to me. It would allow me to assess insecurities in others and have compassion. It really allowed me to not lose my mind when I would say, I'm not trying to force you to do everything my way. I'm trying to help you see a different perspective, just how I could see your perspective. It was truly a pivotal moment because during that time, I started to assess relationships around me. And I also am aware that my emotional intelligence was developed during my master's program for counseling. I made some very strong relationships with women who were going through similar things in their family, or marriage, or just life. And so we built a bond. I had close connection with my professors. I'd be able to talk to them. And it was never, they never gave me their feedback. It was always like, well, what do you think? And I would tell them, and then they'd say, well, it sounds like you have the right answer. It, so I was able to really develop that. But what I had a hard time developing was having the courage to get to a place of acceptance so that the boundaries can be set. So once I learned about emotional intelligence, I started to identify relationships that were close to me that were not healthy. One of was my marriage. I felt like I was constantly trying to plead my case of why I needed certain things. And most of the time, those things were not even really what I needed. It would be around what Aubrey and Ava needed, or if I was in school, somebody picking up the girls. But I started to identify, okay, why does it feel that I'm able to identify what this person needs and work on it consistently, but I'm not getting what I need? I learned about this person may not have the emotional intelligence to meet your needs. And then I had a boss who was very, very mean. And I saw it and I didn't like how it made me feel. even though it wasn't direct, but it made for a very uncomfortable work environment. And I remember reaching out to a mentor that we both were connected to help me guide the conversation. And when I sat down with my boss and the mentor, my boss blew up at me. And at this time, you all, I was in my mid 20s. And everyone typically not everyone, some of the people I've encountered when assessing emotional intelligence, they've been older than me. And that was also very hard for me because I thought as we physically grow, that we mentally grew. And that wasn't until I learned about emotional intelligence for that not to be true. And so I started to just see a pattern around me being particularly comfortable around people who have behaviors and their behaviors are a pattern and they can be destructive not only to themselves but to others. And I was always in a space of, you know, I have compassion, I have humanity. This person can change, this person can change, and also accepting that this is not me having rocks and throwing it at somebody's house while I have a glass house as well, right? This is not that. This is coming from a place of love and especially when the environment is so chaotic or it feels just just tense. It just feels stressful. It doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like fight or flight. That's not healthy environments. And I found myself in work environments like that. Um, I found myself in a marriage like that, and I've contributed to it as well. And I also grew up in a home like that. And so I knew once I started learning about emotional intelligence that I was going to start questioning everything. And then also during that time, my body couldn't take it anymore. My body could not take the 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 repeated cycles, the ups and the downs, okay, we're gonna start fresh, we're gonna get through this, and then boom, I find myself there again. My body couldn't take it anymore. I had to get on medication, but on top of medication, I started drinking. I started smoking, and I wasn't smoking for self-care or healing. I was smoking to avoid, to detach, to where I was detaching myself from everything and everyone to the point I even thought about suicide. I want to stress to everyone listening, please do not ever minimize your feelings because of someone else's pattern and their pattern involving possibly gaslighting you with trying to minimize how bad a situation is, manipulating you, deceiving you, lying to you, downplaying the magnitude of something and making you feel like you are mentally unwell or you're going crazy. If you are feeling this way, this is serious. Your mental health is just as important as your physical health. You do not deserve to live on a cycle, a will with someone. No matter how much you love someone, no matter how much you love a friend, a family member, a lover, your love cannot develop their emotional intelligence. Your love cannot develop capacity. Your love cannot move their ego out the way. Mental health and wellness, our mental health and wellness journey is ours and ours alone. Meaning, when I focus on myself, when the people in my circle focus on themselves, focus on being healthy, focus on striving to be best, focus on consistency, accept support, accept criticism, accept love, the better they are, and I'm doing that at the same time, the better I am, and the better we are together. You can't be the only one doing the work and the other person is not. Both have to be doing the work. Both have to regulate emotions. Both have to be emotionally aware. Both have to be accountable. And if that is lacking and you still want that person in your life, then you have to identify what boundaries look like. We'll talk about boundaries next time. If you've listened to anything and you're going to take anything away from today's podcast, episode 2, is that acceptance is like grieving. Acceptance comes with a range of emotions like grieving. Acceptance allows you to move forward instead of on the cycle, on the hamster wheel. Acceptance allows you to see things for what it is. And acceptance does not mean that things are definite. Acceptance means that you're accepting people or situations for what they are and pivoting the way you need to for you until circumstances change. We have to keep on to compassion and humanity, and those things can exist with boundaries. I love people, y'all, who don't deserve my love. I love people who have done awful things to me. But I know people who love me that I've done awful things to. And I know people who love me, and I know that they love me, but they can't treat me the way that I need and deserve and is required so that I'm mentally well and sound. Don't ever lose the love. Strengthening your emotional intelligence, doing the inner work, focusing on yourself will allow you to keep the love. It will allow you to keep the humanity and the compassion and peace for others within your heart. It'll allow you to move into acceptance. Everyone's using the term narcissism, and we'll get there eventually, but I don't want to hit that word yet just because we all have narcissistic tendencies in us, and some of them are showing more than others. And I know some of us are in a space of like, I'm exhausted. I think I just saw a fox. I'm exhausted. I'm tired of having the talk. I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm tired of feeling like things are going to be better and they don't get better. I'm tired of the person not meeting me where I'm at. Those are where boundaries come into play. And we'll talk about that next week. Thank you so much for being here with me. I'll talk to y'all soon. Peace and love.